Hello, for this video I'll go over the cleanup process that I do for the frames, and then I'll go over a little bit of how I do the gradients and the node view and stuff, which you don't have to do, but it might be useful to know some of that if you're trying to do certain things with the water. I'm not sure how you want to do it, so whichever way you want to do it is fine. For the cleanup, it's actually like pretty simple what I do, but I'll show you the layers and the brush I use and all that stuff. So over here I always use the pencil tool when I'm cleaning up, and I go over here to, let me collapse this. I go over here and I use the grain brush, and sometimes the grain brush doesn't load in with these files, I think because I imported them from Storyboard Pro. So if you click over here on the little thing, it'll bring the options up, and so this is where I change it to have, a lot of times it will start like at the opacity down here. I change it to be full opacity, and then I go to texture, and then I hit grain. If there's no texture here, like it only has this none box, you can hit this button here and it will like reload the textures in, because it's just a default texture, so it should reload fine. So I just like click that and then I'm done. Oops, I didn't mean to close that. That's okay. I have to re-pull that up. So if you accidentally close this, the difference here is this is the drawing view, so this is only one layer, like it is what you see on the drawing layer. So that's, I have the hair selected now, so I'm only seeing the hair. If I select the face, I'm only seeing the face. The one that you generally want to work in is the camera view, and that's everything you see in the camera, like that's what's gonna render out. Oh, it's not letting me do that. Okay. So yeah, I like to work in the camera view because the drawing view can be confusing. You won't see all your layers. And so what I do is sometimes I do more or less smoothing depending on what I'm doing, but I usually keep it like here-ish. And then I always use a size 8 brush on the grain one, and then I'll just go in and do that, except that doesn't look great, so maybe I did size up. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'll do stuff like that, and then my biggest other tool that I use when I'm cleaning up is the cutter tool, which is over here. If you double click, that's how you get that. So then you can go in and cut all the extra lines, and I like to make sure that, oh, that's not working because the hair is on a separate layer. But I like to make sure that this one is rounded, because if you cut it, if it's beveled or flat, it'll sometimes look a little gross when you're cutting things. So yeah, I just prefer the rounded style. Oh, and also for the grain brush, if you go down here, what is it? There's trim extra lines, which can be kind of annoying, but it can be useful. So like that's, if you see, it's trimming the extra lines that I make. And then there's autofill. Where's the other one? Oh, it's this one. I do auto close gap. So this is like when I do a line, it'll like, okay. When I don't know what's going on, but so when I do a line, it will automatically close. Like when I convert to Lineart, it will try to close that, which you can't see it now, but when it goes to Lineart, you can do that. The keyboard shortcut for the cutter tool is I just hold T and then drag to like slash through things. And then if you want to do like a lasso, you can hold T, select the area, and press delete while you're holding T. So that's like really useful. That's pretty much it for the pencil tool, I think. I'll get into the water stuff. So for the water, I have currently been using, where is it? The Granite brush on size 30. Obviously it doesn't have to be exact. Alright, this is shot 18, which is one of the shots you'll get for the water effects. As you can see, he like splashes water. So this is the Granite brush, and so what I did here with the layers is I'll try to like have the horizon line in and some of the ripples, but if you want to redo the ripples because some of them are really bad because I didn't have time, feel free to do that. You don't have to though. So what I did is I did a layer on top for these ripples here, and then I did a layer underneath for the water line. So this is gonna let me fill in, when we go to color art, I'll be able to fill the whole like water line in behind the character and then still have the ripples on top. So that's why I did it like separately like that. Sometimes it takes a second for the texture to load. Again, if this texture doesn't load up, you can hit the square over here and then go to texture, and then it's B pencil, so then you can reload it in. If it's not here, if it just says none and it's not showing up textured, that might be the problem. Except now it's having problems. I don't know. So I'll show you like an example frame, I guess, of how it would be colored real quick. Okay, so I've pulled those palettes in, and now I'm gonna show you how I do like the water stuff. Or actually, I'll show you how I do like the layer stuff too. So this is pretty cool. I'm gonna create a new layer here, a new drawing layer actually, and name it Gradient. And then I'm gonna hit add and close. So this created a new layer here, and it works pretty much just like, they work pretty similar to like Photoshop or Clip Studio or any of those drawing layers. This one is on top, this one is on the bottom. And you can turn visibility on and off like this. If you want to solo a layer, it's like the single eye. If you want to solo multiple layers, you can do that, and if you want to turn that on and off, you can hit the very top eye. And then this turns on and off the onion skin, which I can go over the onion skin again at the end. And then you have like the layer lock if you don't want to touch the layer at all. And the little ghost here lets you change the opacity. So those are just like the basics of the layers here. I'm gonna create a new layer. Actually, I'll go through and stroke tool some of these real quick. If you hit F and G, it will jump between the drawings. So like the frame is like, this is still the same drawing, but a different frame. If I hit G, it's jumping to the next drawing, which is like helpful. So I'll just do a couple of these because this is an example. So I'm gonna go to the gradient layer, and I'm gonna find, so this seems like the highest the water's at. So this is like a rectangle tool that can just draw a rectangle. This doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just gonna go outside of the water layer, so it's like bigger than the water layer, and do that. If you want to extend a frame, you can right click and then do extend exposure and put in the exact frame, or I'm lazy, so I just drag it to like where I want it to end, and then I drag it back, and then that will just extend it for the whole thing. And so now I'm gonna go in and use a gradient to fill this in. So under the sky waterline palette, I have the water new, which is how I'm filling in the water now. And so I'm gonna go over here to the paint tool and just drag it. So now you can see that the gradient is going this way, which is like how it's in here. I want it to go this way so that the lightest is on top and the darkest is down here. So if I go over to the contour editor, there's an edit gradient texture option. And so if you click on it, this is all on the color layer, by the way. So if you click on it and you rotate it, it will change the direction of the gradient. And then you can also change like so this is like where it's radiating, the circle in the middle is where it radiates out from. So I'm gonna change that to be about like there-ish. And so the reason I'm doing this way is if you were to fill in, I'll show you, but if you were to fill in individually on all of these layers, you'd have to do that every time. And we don't have that kind of time. So, and it also looks kind of flashy when you do it like that. So I'm gonna make this like, what do they call it? Like a cutter layer. And I'll show you how to do that in the node view now. So I have this on this layer and it's going all the way across here. And now if I go to the node view, which is over here, if your node view isn't over there, you can hit the plus sign and then find node view on this little box thing to add it in. And I'm gonna make the node view pretty big. So the node view works pretty similarly in terms of like zooming in and out, 1 and 2, spacebar to grab and move stuff around. And so the node view is basically like a graphic representation of your layers here. So instead of going up and down here, it shows what is connected to what. So my node views are really horrendous right now because I don't really need them to be clean to do this. If you're doing puppeting or like other like actual compositing stuff in the node view, you'll want it more organized. But for this, like, it doesn't really matter that much. So I'm gonna just drag and select that. And a quick way to organize the node view is to just hit this button here, and that will just lay everything out like that. So now you can see I don't need that camera. Now you can see I have everything in the node view is like, I'll make it big so you can see. Everything in the node view is laid out pretty much just like this. So if you go down here, so the composite is what you see, because it's plugged into display right now. You don't need to mess with any of this. But so a composite is basically like a big layer. And right now we have it all plugged into one composite that you're seeing in the display. And that's fine. So if you look, so these ones that are red are the ones that you don't see. So they're like disarmed or disabled. So like I have a layer for the head arc and like a layer that I was using to keep the water line straight, which we actually don't need those. So I'll delete them. So now if I want to grab this and move this over, that'll be like nice and neat. So now I have my gradient layer here, and I have the waterline layer here. And what I want is, I want the gradient layer to only apply to the waterline. Actually, I'm gonna go and fill this in real quick. I'll just use water old so that you can see the difference. And fill these, I had every layer selected still, which is bad, but it worked in this case. So I filled in all of the water lines. So what I want is the gradient layer to only apply to this water layer here. So I'm gonna create a clipping mask after I've split this up. So the tricky thing here is I made the color art and the line art on the same layer. So I first have to split up the color art and the line art. So that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna right click here. Oh, nope, not right click. I'm gonna press enter, and then you can type in, I'm gonna type in line art. I misspelled that. My computer is way over right now. So, and if you can't find it with hitting enter, you can go to the node library here, which again, if it's not there, you can hit the plus and then find it, add it in. If you can't find it, you can go in here and like look around or type it here. And they spell their color like British or whatever. So that's like something you have to watch out for. And so you can just drag and drop it into the window. That using enter is faster, but if you can't find something, you can always like dig around for it. So now I have this color art and this line art layer, and I'm gonna use the cutter tool to just cut the line there. And that's like our, it's the in node view cutter, so that's different than the other tool. This is a cable cutter. And so what I'm gonna do now is plug the waterline layer into the liner and the color art. So now you'll see if I plug, actually I'm gonna add a composition just to make this look nicer. So, or a composite. So this is just like adding another, like, it's basically kind of like a folder pretty much. So like if you have stuff plugged into a composite, everything in that folder is going to get then plugged into the lower folder. So I'm going to plug this into the composite here and then plug it back into the composite at the bottom. And so now you see it. Okay, so now I've got all this set up, I'm going to go in and add a cutter layer. So this is where it gets tricky, but I'll explain it. And I got it mixed up the first time I recorded this. So I'm re-recording now to not be confusing. So you're just gonna hit enter, and then, oh, I already have it here, but you're gonna type cutter layer. And then again, if it doesn't show up here, you can always like dig around for it down here. And so what this is whatever you plug in here is gonna like reference the other layer. So I'll show you how it works. And this mask is the inversion. So if you want to invert whatever you've done. So I'm gonna put this over here. And so the reason I split up the liner and the color art is I just want the gradient on the color art, and I want to be able to see this little water line on top because I'm picky like that. So I'm gonna enable this. And so now I have my gradient, you can see it. It's not plugged into anything, so that's why you can't see it in the camera view. Everything you see in the camera view has to be plugged into this main composite that is plugged into the display. And so this gradient here, I'm gonna plug it in here to this cutter part. And then I'm gonna take my wire cutters and cut through that. And then plug the color art into the matte. And then I'm going to plug this right down into the composite. And so now you can see that what it's done is it's only applied, as it's subtracted this color art from the gradient right now. But I want it to be the other way around. I want the gradient to be subtracted from the color art. So I want the gradient to just show up on the color art. So all I'm going to do is double click this little mask and it will invert it. So now I've got my little gradient on top here, and the reason I've done it like this is because now when you go and you fill the rest of the frames in on the color layer, let me do that real quick. So now when I take this and I fill that in, the gradient is automatically applied, and it's the same gradient all the way through. Instead of, I was having issues when I was trying to do it individually, it would be like flashy and stuff and distracting, and I just want it like that. If we were to get fancy, we could add a peg tool and then move it. But I'll show how to do that like really quick. In case it's useful for any of your other water stuff. So right now I have the gradient here, and then I have the water line here. I'm just gonna move this over because it makes more sense to me reading right to left, or left to right. So basically everything in the node view, you never want to move your drawing. Like animate your drawing, you never want to animate your drawing. And usually actually when you're doing all this, you want animate current frame off. You want this to be red so that you're not accidentally like messing with things. So whenever you're animating with the node view, you do not want to use the drawing layer, you want to add a peg. And you can do that by just clicking and doing Control P, and that will add a peg to it. Again, if you like forgot that or weren't able to, you could search for peg move, and then it will add in, and then you can attach it on. I actually don't need a peg on this. And you can of course like go and change the names. If you like hit the yellow box, you can change the names, do all that stuff. So what I've done is I've added a peg layer to this gradient, and I'm actually going to unclick the gradient from the color art just for real quick while I'm demonstrating this. So if I go to the transform tool, I have this here, and so this little circle here is like your pivot point. So this is whenever you move the image, it's gonna be moving out from this pivot point. So if I rotate it right now, or like move it, shrink it, whatever, if I rotate it, it's moving around that pivot point. So I want to move that to be, I guess like on the waterline is actually fine because it's a little bit above. So I'm gonna move that like right there-ish. And you can manually set the pivot point. So if you want it to be exactly the same, say you add another gradient on top for some reason, you want it to be exactly linked to that one, you can go in the yellow box and go down to pivot and input like the exact pivot point you want. You can copy paste pivot points, like the coordinates for them. So now I've got this pivot point here, and then if I go down to this, now I have a peg layer in my drawings. So this peg layer down here is showing the animation. I'm actually gonna lock this gradient layer because sometimes Toonboom is weird and it tries to apply animation on this layer, and you don't want animation on that layer because it gets really messy really fast. So now I've got my pivot point set. Now I'm gonna set a keyframe. You wanna hit this one, this little blue one, to add a keyframe. Do not hit this one because this is gonna add an exposure, and that's like a different thing. So by hitting this add keyframe, you can see that it's got this little red dot, and so that is a keyframe. So that is saying that this frame, this drawing is right here. Now I'm going to go all the way here, I guess. And I'm going to move it down to be on that water line there. And then I'm gonna move it down there. So this has added, now it's moving. My gradient is, moving. So that's pretty cool. So this is what they call like using pegs or peg animation. I'm actually gonna delete that because it looks kind of stupid there. So that's like, it's pretty cool. So normally for peg animation, like with characters, you would want to use stop motion keyframes, and you can edit that in the either Toonboom preferences or edit preferences on window. And then I actually always like do stop motion keyframes, and that will, if you check that, it will make sure all the keyframes you put in are stop motion. So I'll show you what that looks like. And then if I like shift click here and I hit like Control L, it will undo. So now you can see what it looks like as stop motion. So it's basically jumping. Before, when you see the line between them, that's it's automatically like in betweening for that. So I like it. I like these ones smooth. So it's Command K to make it in between, and Command L to make it stop motion. And so if you want to set the eases on this, that's what these little graphs are. So if you see like, so that's like there's like all sorts of ease options. And it takes a bit to get used to the graph eases because you have to like read them as eases. So like this is like, I believe this is ease in, and then this one should be ease out or whatever. It's kind of hard to tell because I don't have much animation there. But so now that I've done that, I'm gonna plug my color art back into the color layer. And so now when I look over here and I click off of that, I go up here, and then now when I look at it, it's got it's like moving the gradient with it, so the gradient isn't just staying in one place, which is really nice. I'll show you onion skins again, because that's pretty helpful. So I'll go up to this layer, and I have to make the transform tool off. And so if you click this plus sign here, that will turn the onion skin on. These are how many frames you want to see in front and how many frames you want to see behind. So if they're all unchecked, you're not going to see any of them. And if they're all checked, you're going to see all of them. And this changes like the opacity of all the frames. This you can raise and lower like multiple at once or like singular ones. I usually don't mess with this too much because it's kind of annoying, but yeah. So there's that, and I like to do by drawings instead of by frames, because like when you're just like the arrow tools, by frames is like I'm still on the same frame even though I'm going forward and back, so I'm seeing the same frame in front, so it's not really helpful. Whereas if I do by drawings, it's gonna show me the next drawing even if I'm like a little further away. So that'll be really helpful for water animation. So how I was doing the ripples is the coloring. So I was cutting off the color like right here, and then I was also fading it with a gradient into the ripples, which you don't have to do, but if you were interested in it, I could show you how I do that real quick. So it's pretty similar. So I'm gonna go to the color art here, and then the stroke tool, and then I just did like, I did it from the second ripple out, so then I left this one as when I color it. I'll actually color it real quick actually. Okay, so now I've got it colored here. So this is kind of how I've figured out how to do the color. So I've been doing it where I color on like the alien layer, and I do like the first ripple is the cutoff for the underwater versus above water colors, and then if I go to the water ripple layer, which is on top, I'll take the stroke tool and then I'll go to waterline, and doesn't actually, I'll just add like a random color. Just to show you guys. And so I take the stroke tool, and then this is on the Lineart layer. I take the stroke tool again, and then I go over all of that. And so I'll show you like what that does actually. So now I'm gonna paint it in, and it will be all red and ugly. And I'm basically gonna do the same thing with the cutter layer, except actually I did not want to do that. Alpha 0. Okay, so I'm gonna repaint that actually. That. And then I'm going to go to the gradient editor and do that. Which again, you guys don't have to do this. This is just me being kind of insane. So I've got it so like the top of it is right on that, and then below is kind of like that. So now it's lined up there. And so now I'm actually gonna apply this. So I changed my mind how I want it done. But so this is how I want it done, is the gradient. So if I go to the node view here, I'm gonna do basically the same thing I just did with the water line, except now with the ripple and the clean line. Alright, so now I have like the same thing as before, except it's plugged into a new composite, which is gonna go in front of this composite, because this is like the water composite, which you can rename if you want, and then close. So I'm gonna do like the same thing but kind of reverse a little bit. So I'm gonna take this water ripple and I'm gonna split it into the color art and the line art, and I want the line art to be on top. So I'm gonna plug that in there, and now I want the color art to reference the other drawing. So I'm gonna plug this in here, and now it's just on top of that drawing. So, and if you go to this view, which is the view you're probably in with the gray sunflower, it's not going to show up. It's going to look like it just filled in. And that's okay because that's just how it works. It's saving time and energy to not render that out. This blue sunflower is the render view. So that shows you how it's going to look like once it's rendered out. So it'll look cool once it's rendered out. Yeah. And so this blue sunflower, it won't let you play back. It just plays the single frame, and that's okay. If you wanted to see it rendered out, you could hit this button here, which I'm not going to do. It's render and play, and it will pop up a little movie. But I don't usually do that. I just like kind of tap through the individual frames to see. But so this is how I would do the water now. And then, yeah. So if you wanted to do like a splash or something on top, I'll go over how you might go about doing that. So I would condense these. If you press the little arrows, they'll condense back down because you don't need to see all that. And I'm gonna hit the plus sign to add a drawing layer, and I'll just do like water top. So if you wanted to do like, I don't know, he goes like over here. Well, let me get out of this view. Like this one, and you want to do a splash on top. And again, like, so for the ripples and for the backwater, I would definitely use the Granite brush. But for these like waves, it's kind of up to you whether or not you think it looks better with like the clear pencil or the other one. So that's kind of up to you. You can kind of decide. And then, yeah, so you can just add layers on top, and then if we need these to go over it, we can go in with the cutter and cut it. Or if you want to blend it into the background again, we could try to do that with cutter layers and stuff. I could mess around. But just like, if you get just like the general idea of what you want, that's like, and you just add it in, that's probably fine. So yeah. And then if you want to do like a layer for sketching, do sketch, add and close. So you can always add colors too. So I'll go over that. I don't know where my palettes went. Oh, it's right here. So if you can always just like add a color and then do color. So how to, like, if you want to add a gradient, you can do this, and then this is like the alpha for like the color, whatever you've selected. This one, like, you have to just like click them to select them. If you add an extra one that you don't want, you just like drag it off the screen and it will go away. So you can always just like add random colors. If you want to have a sketch layer, you could do like sketch. This is on the color layer, which it shouldn't be, but it doesn't matter for this. And then you can like lower the opacity if you want, and then you could like go and like draw like your actual stuff on top, and then you can always like delete it. So it works like kind of like just other drawing programs. I think that's pretty much it, but thank you and good luck. if you have any questions, reach out. I can try to, you know, help like over message if you have any questions. A lot of it is just getting used to the program. So, all right, bye.